Yeah, inshallah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina wa Nabeena Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Firstly, to all brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My brothers and sisters, any human being on this earth that Allah Azza wa Jal has made a human that is admirable, someone we look up to, someone who we think has achieved a lot in their life, someone who we believe is ahead of others, someone who's a role model. You will not find any leader, any role model, except that that person has gone through difficulties in their life, which has shaped them to who they are. Without this, you won't find the greatness in that person. Even yourself, the best lessons you learned in your life are those lessons that you learned the tough way. When we fall down and we get up, we find that these are some of the best lessons we learn in our lives, because they are never to be forgotten. When you have a business failure and then you learn how not to trust certain people, how to do business differently, how to be smart with your money, smarter than what you were before, then this is a lesson that you have learned for life. The same happens when you make any relationship in this world, any form of activity, and you learn that something went wrong. Usually it teaches you something better after that. Now, with regards to that, if we believe that our lives should be without any difficulties whatsoever, if we believe that our life should be difficult free, then what you're saying to yourself is that you should not become a really good person in life. If we look at our children, and if we feel that every form of difficulty we have to remove, and we must ensure that they never face difficulty in their lives, then me and you are really in some ways fooling ourselves. Because Allah has made the human being in a way. Allah said in the Holy Quran, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. I have made the human being in a way that he's going to be in some form of discomfort. Some form of discomfort throughout his life. Sometimes Allah Azza wa Jal gives us a discomfort that is bigger than the last one, and sometimes Allah gives a little discomfort, and Allah Azza wa Jal will always give ease with every discomfort He gives in this world. Allah has said in the Holy Quran, Inna ma'al usri yusra. With every difficulty, I will give you ease. Inna ma'al usri yusra. Allah has said this twice. Why Allah said this twice is because life will continue with ease and difficulty. If you think that this life should be always ease, then it's not going to be the life that you dreamed of. And you're going to make yourself feel miserable by feeling that this life is going to be of ease. With that in mind, what I want to say is, when a child is born and a child has to learn how to walk, what do? Do we hold the hand and we make the child walk, and every time the child wants to walk, the child puts his hand up, and then we put our finger there, and the child holds our finger, and then we make the child walk? Yes, we'll do that for a few days. We'll do that for a couple of weeks. But eventually, you know and I know that you let the child just walk on his own. And for the child to walk on his own, he must fall, she must fall. We all know this. They will go first, they will try and balance themselves. That's one difficulty in itself. They try and balance themselves. Again, we try and make it a little bit easy by giving them, one of those walkers where they put their legs in and they're able to be free and to walk whichever direction they want, but they won't fall. But eventually they will try and go from one sofa to another sofa, from one knee of yours to the knee of a mother. And they will try and balance themselves 1 or 2 steps, but they will fall. It is inevitable that they will fall, and we all know this. When they fall, we laugh, because the child will get up again, and the child will try again. Even though sometimes the fall could make them feel hurt, where their head has actually hit something, and we know this will happen. But this is how children learn, not to do what they shouldn't do. In fact, sometimes the child could try and crawl off the bed, and the child could actually fall thumping onto the ground. But every child more or less has done that. Somewhere or another, we've all done this. And that's how you learn not to do it. Now, if you said to yourself, I'm going to avoid every single fall of that child from hurting it. What you do is you make the child's life so comfortable that you put the carpet something which is maybe 5 inches thick, so that when the child falls, there's actually no hurt. The child will fall, but there's no hurt. You put cushions all around the bed, so that when the child falls, it falls onto a cushion. Now, have you done good for you and your child, or have you actually damaged the future of your child? You should know. Because the more comfort you make for the child to fall and not to be hurt, if you think that's a very happy thing that you've just done, a very, very joyful thing that you've done, you've actually damaged your own child's future, and you damage your own future. Why? Because you can't put cushions all over the house. And you can't put cushions all over the street. One day the child is going to be walking in a place where there are no cushions. And the child is going to hit himself seriously. And it's better that the child falls when the child is only perhaps 1 foot tall than for the child to fall when the child is 2 or 3 feet tall. Because that's going to hurt even more. We know this. So what am I trying to say from this? Throughout life, why is it that we as parents want to put as many cushions as we want for everything that is going in their lives? And I'm saying this particularly because today we've got a lot of children with us. Why make life so easy? I'm not saying don't help them at all, no. When the child was going to walk, we did give it the finger and we made it walk for a little while. When the child wanted to walk, we encouraged it to take a few steps from that sofa to my knees, or from that sofa to this sofa. And the child just about made it, sometimes didn't make it. When he fell, we just laughed about it and made the child get back up again and try again. That's what life should be about, which is we show a little bit, but the effort has to come from the child. The more effort that comes from the child, the better this child will be. And the more comfort you make it where the child has less effort from itself, the more difficult it will become for you and the child in the future. So let me give you another example. When a child needs encouragement to be at school on the first day, what do? And there are different parents here that will have different ways of dealing with the child. Some will, some parents will actually cry with the child, having to leave the child in the school. Some parents will be at the door, looking at the child. Just now, the heart's going out through the child. Oh my God, I've just left my child inside. And the child sees this. Do you think that when you show your child that you're crying with your child, a lot of tears, and showing all this discomfort inside you, and the child sees that, do you think you make the life easier for the child, or you make it more difficult? You actually make it more difficult. Yes, the child needs to know you sympathize with it. Yes, don't get me wrong. The child needs to know that you're sorrowful, that you're going to leave it. And you need to give explanation that, look, Mum is going to leave you here in school today, but Mum is going to be back at 3 o'clock, or Mum is going to be back at 12 o'clock to pick you up. Right? And the mummy needs to just walk off without showing that mummy really is going to be there for every fall the child's going to have. No. That day is a day when you teach a child independency. You give it growth. You give it a part of it that needs to be part of this child for life. Because the next thing's going to come. This is just school, the first day. When a child has fallen down, let's just say a child has fallen down and has hurt himself or herself, what do? See, different parents again have different ways. Some parents are like, oh, yallah, don't worry about it. Look, if you do this with child, I'll guarantee you the child will be like this. If you say, yallah, it doesn't matter. These things happen, and you just brush it off. You just brush the dust off. You just wipe the blood away, and you make no big deal out of blood. You just wipe the blood away. You just say, don't worry about it. These things happen. You just, put some wool there, whatever, and then you put some antiseptic, whatever it might be, and then a plaster over it, and you say, look, get on with your life. The child feels, you know what? That was normal. But if you sit there and say, Ya Allah, what happened? Oh my God. Oh no, blood. Oh dear. Oh, and you start breaking, you say, you know what? You're going to traumatize the child. Because now to the child, if my blood comes out, I'm like dead. I'm going to die. Right? You seriously, hospital, going to hospital, broken something, it happens. It happens. Take it naturally. In fact, the way we treat the child at this moment is going to shape their life for the long term. Because if at this moment you start scolding the child, I told you not to run, I told you this, I told you that, and you make it so much so that you're telling off the child so much that now you're inhibiting in the child fear. And you're making them feel really bad for doing something that is normal for a child. Oh yes, I do understand sometimes children do a bit too much and you need to balance it, you need to tell them off. But tell them off in a moderate way. Keep them back in line in a moderate way. The child will grow up fine and good. But once you start offsetting the balance, things always go wrong. So what does the child need at this time? Child needs your sympathy. It needs your heart. It needs your love. Yes, it needs to know someone's there to protect me. But it needs to also know that I need to get through this myself. And you know, this whole thing of, let's just say for example, if for school, going to school, if your child is someone that has a slight headache or something, and you say, well, oh, or if they complain about a slight pain, and you say, oh, you shouldn't go to school today, you're making the soft cushion and the wool all the time. And they will want that even more and more. And in every aspect of life, think what we are doing. Because if you send that child to school with a little bit of a pain, or you send the school with, let's say for example, the child was late last night, coming back home, and they haven't had enough sleep. You're not going to send the child to school because there's not enough sleep. What you're doing is, you're pampering the child. The more you pamper the child, the worse you make it for yourself and the child as well as they grow older. If they complain, they don't want to read something, are you going to say, well, they don't have to read it? So if they were to complain that they can't read English, are you actually going to say, well, no, it's okay, we'll just put the English away? No, you wouldn't. You'd give the English to them again and again to read. So what happens when they complain that they can't read the Arabic? Are you just going to say, oh, let's say, for example, you're from Afghanistan and you want them to learn your own language. If you're going to say, well, you know, my child is finding it a bit difficult to learn the Afghan language and I'm just going to let them be, you're causing difficult for yourself and for your child in the long-term future. There are certain things we don't like and we need to do it. We need to make them do it. For example, one of my children, my daughter, she never used to like oranges when she was young. And I said to myself, you know what, you don't like oranges, you're going to have oranges. Because once they don't like oranges and then don't like this fruit and that one tastes a little bit tangy and that one is a bit bitter and that one this, that one that, and they complain about all sorts, they'll grow up not having fruits. I don't want my child to grow up without having fruits and veg. If they don't want fruits and veg, they're going to have fruits and veg. If you're complaining that your children can't, your children don't like fruits and veg, it's because you never made them eat fruits and veg. In fact, I will tell you one thing. If your children don't know what sweets are, and you actually tell them fruits are sweets, wallahi, I will tell you they will always look forward to having fruits. I know a nephew of mine who hasn't had sweets up to the age of 2 years something. And the nephew doesn't know what sweets are. So fruits, which has got, natural sugar in it, is actually the sweets. If you get your child used to sweets, that's really sweet, and then you give them fruits, they won't like fruits. In fact, most of these habits that we complain about later on are instilled inside the child's life when they were young, and when he was 10 years younger. So for example, you want your child to be independent, make them independent. How? Well, let them do things on their own. They're going to make mistakes, let them make mistakes. This is part of life. You want your child to be confident, let them be confident by doing things. For example, you're traveling, let your child go from you to the store, to the shop over there and buy something and come back. Let them talk to adults in front of you. Get them confident. Let them face the difficulties and challenges in their life, and the more they face it, the better. See, the world we're living in, the world we used to live in, was that most of us growing up here in the UK in the 70s, in the 80s, I would say 70s and 80s, we used to roam around the streets. We used to be able to be free. I know today there's too many things that you wouldn't trust your child to go outside. But this is making life difficult for them and for you. Why? Because that confidence and so on is not being built inside them. If you want them to be independent, then let them be independent from a young age. Why shouldn't children be able to iron their own clothes at the age of 10? Why shouldn't children make their own breakfast by the age of 6 or 7? Why shouldn't children be able to get all the clothes and everything ready themselves by the age of 7 or 8, for school? Why shouldn't be able to do that? Put that in them, they'll do it. See, what we've got now is we've got mothers and fathers cushioning them, pampering them. So what they're doing is they're getting all their clothes ready. They're getting their breakfast ready. Until you don't get the breakfast in the bowl and pour it down for them at the age of 9 or 10, they're not going to even eat. Whose damage is that? That's your damage, because you're not seeing the greater damage that's going to come, which is the child's going to be 15 or 14 and expect you as a parent to warm up their food when they come home. My God, have you got a prince in your house? Seriously? And when they grow up, bit by bit, there are difficulties they must face. And that's part of life. For example, your children want to play games. There's certain times you have to say, no, you can't play. And there's certain times they want to play, fine, you allow them to play. There are times when you want your authority to be put down, then it has to be your authority. Let me give you an example. If in your house, you call your child, and your child is not coming straight away. So you say something like, Mustafa, and Mustafa says to you, I'm coming. I say, Mustafa, say, I'm coming. Your child has just put you on snooze. They've just put you on snooze. If you ask them to come several times, whose fault is that? That your child at the age of 9, 10, 11 has now learned how to put you to snooze and not come straight away. That is your fault, my friend. And it's going to get worse. Because by the age of 16, 17, 18, you won't even get a reply. And if you get a reply, it's going to be like, well, I don't want to come right now. Where did this come in? This came in because at the age of 6 or 7, at the age of 5, you never instilled in the child, when I call you, you drop everything and you come. Like an obedient child. Why not? Well, this is the house. Allah's given me authority, and this is how the house will work nicely. If the parent is in charge and the child, follows as a subordinate, everything's going to run fine. To instill that, you've got to remove those cushions that you placed. The first time your child puts you on snooze and so on, you've got to remove that cushion. You accept the snooze, then they're going to snooze you even longer. Next time. If you want them to pray, it's like, well, prayer time is here. You've just got to pray. Finish. Khalas, there's no, if you do it at a very early age, it goes in really well, where the child just feels that is naturally part of life, to pray. There's no excuse. There can't be an excuse not to pray. If you leave it too late, see what some parents do is they don't make them pray until they're 12 or 13. That's too late, my friend. That's very, very late. You've got to get them to do all the salah on time, with you or without you in the house. By the age of 10, they've got to have this in their life. By the age of 10, it's got to be done. It's got to be already instilled in their life. If you wait till 12, 13, they'll say, no, I don't want to do it. There's going to be moaning. Now look, the other thing is when they moan, what do? Do you give in to their moans? Do you listen to their moans? Do you listen to the complaints? Look, the child has they've got a mouth to speak back to, yes. But as long as within adab, within respect, within the form of respect, if they speak to you, alhamdulillah, listen to them, no problem. If they're going to ask you several questions, but within the boundaries of respect, fine. When they disrespect you and they answer back to you, when they disrespect you and they say to you things that you don't want to hear, you cut it off from day number 1. If you don't cut it off from day number 1, trust me, you'll grow up with a monster in your house that you don't know how to deal with. You don't know what to do with this monster. And parents come, and parents say, like for example, the other day I had a parent come to me, and a parent said to me, do something about, please, Imam Sahib, do something about my child. I said, what? He said, Imam Sahib, please do something about my child. Give me something what I can do about my child. Now the parent must be about 55, 60 years old. I'm guessing the child is probably about maybe, 14, 15, 16, 17, I don't know what age is. So I said, so what's the matter with your child? And he said, my child is playing, too many games, just too much on these games. I said, how long? And the parents said, well, I said, how long a day? And the parents said to me, 4 to 5 hours a day. Now, the first thing I said, I said, it's your fault. Before you blame the child, I want to know how this child got the freedom to build up to 4 to 5 hours of playing console games a day. Where was you when the child was going beyond the limit of what you wanted to set it? Where was you? Where was your wife? Where was your household? Because if you allow your child to go beyond the 1 hour cap that you had, then they're going to go into the 2 hour cap. When you allow the 2 hour caps, they'll fall to the 3 hour cap. And then the moods start. Now every child is going to challenge you with moods. Like, they want to play more, they want to play more. They'll give you moods, mood swings. When they give you mood swings, you've got to swing it back. Do you understand? What that means is you just got to turn the tap off. You say, okay, fine. If this game is making you behave like this towards me today, okay, right? That means that game has to stop for a little while until your action changes. Your behavior has to change. And seriously, if it takes 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just do that until they behave nicely. Otherwise, you're going to end up not knowing how to deal with it. Imagine your child is 15, 16. They've got more muscular, parts to their body than you could have at this age. They could probably put you down at this age if they were to go for you. They're probably taller than you at this moment. And you're thinking, how do I control the child? Now you come to the imam to try and deal with this. Okay, fine. We imams are here to listen. But your problem and your part is, where did you start putting the cushions? Those cushions, that pampering. When you started to pamper, they say, okay, let them go. Yeah, let them play a little bit. It's okay, it's my child. Let them play, let them play. When you don't have the tap there, then you end up with the problem that you've got. Obedience is at the forefront, at the core of the family rules. Obedience. Obedience means obedience is 100% obedience. When I as the father, when I as the mother tell you to do something, that's it, khalas. Unless I change my mind, you shouldn't manipulate me to try and change my mind. And when you've got obedience to that level, look, you don't have to be strict, you don't have to be harsh, you don't have to be horrible to them, no way. Obedience is a basic factor. Everything has obedience. Don't tell me it doesn't. For example, outside on the streets, isn't there obedience for the system and the law outside? Isn't there obedience for the policing system outside? Isn't there obedience for the court system outside? Isn't there obedience for any of the laws that are made outside? Of course there is. You go into a shop, there's obedience. You can't just walk inside there and start, throwing things off the shelf. You can't do that. You can't go into a library and start talking really loudly. There's obedience. There's a law there that you've got to obey it. You've got to be quiet and silent in the library. The same thing applies. The same thing applies to the house. Nothing wrong with this. When you put your authority down and it's got to be met with immediate obedience, that's not being harsh. That's your right as a parent. That's your right, because if you lose that, you've lost everything. Imagine outside there, the police who are trying to control our streets. If we could just, talk to them how we wanted to. Let's say a police officer stops me. I say, officer, what do you stop me for? He says to me, because I want to check you. Why you want to check me for this now? You got no right to check me this now. And I start driving off. My God. That immediately, forget whether I made a crime or I didn't cause a crime. That is a crime in itself for me to drive off. Because the policeman has stopped me. When a policeman stops you, you've got to now follow, whatever he says. If he wants to check your car, he checks your car. If he wants to check you, he checks you. And maybe he's got, an authority, whatever it is that he might say, whatever reasoning he's got, he can do that. Right? If he wants to pull out this section or that section and say, well, we got this right from this section 44, whatever it is, you've got to stay there, you've got to comply with what the officer says. If the officer says nothing wrong, have a good day, have a nice day, then you go off, that's fine. But tell me this, in the house, when you and me tell the child something, and the child is just walking off, or the child is giving back chat, or the child is moaning, or the child is talking over me at the age of 10. This is the age it starts. With the British children, it starts around the age of 10. If at that moment you kind of brush over what they did in terms of the back chat, in terms of their attitude, in terms of the anger, in terms of the mood swings, you brush that off, my God, you are waiting for a catastrophe, an absolute disaster in 5 years' time, in 6, 7, 8 years' time. Absolute disaster. Because they will grow, that thing will grow inside them, where they feel that they've got a right not to listen to you. Then they'll shut the door. They'll sit down. You go up to their bedroom and you say, you knock on the door, come out, come out. And then you're now begging them as a parent to come out. Some parents do this. They go to the bedroom, the child's gone off with a mood swing, gone into the bedroom, locked the door or something. First is, why have you even got a lock on the child's door in the bedroom? There should be respect. If you close the door, we should knock on the door and then come in, that's fine. But putting a lock there that the child can lock himself in his own bedroom, that's like, oh my God, you're pampering again. You're giving extra. Anyway, let's say, for example, the child's inside the bedroom and you're a parent outside the bedroom, and now you're trying to beg the child to come out. You tell me who's in power right now. Who's in power? Tell me. The child is in power. And if the child gets in power at that age, you can only predict nicely what they're going to do with you in another 6, 7, 8 years' time. Then in 8 years' time, you know what you're going to end up with? You're going to end up with a child that doesn't come out of the shower. Stays there for 1 hour. 1 hour, 30 minutes. Whose electricity bill is it, my friends? It's the father's electricity bills, yes? Yes? The child stays in there. How long do you need the shower for? Max, 20 minutes, half an hour. All right? Maybe if you have a long shower, then once in a while, okay, it might be a little longer, but you don't need to stay in there that long. But imagine this child stays there for that long. That's just a shower. Right? Comes out, puts his gel on, combs his hair, as if, this is Mr. Mr. who owns his street. Right? Then he gets his fancy clothes. You know what kind of fancy clothes? The ones that he made you buy by demand. Because he said he wants his designer clothing. And you better get it. Because he's going to throw a tantrum in the house. He's going to make your wife's life hell by doing her head in, by moaning in her ears. And she's going to do your head in as the father. That's what normally happens in the family household. He does it to his mother, and then through his mother he gets to you. Because she said, look, leave me alone, okay. No, tell dad, I want that. Tell dad, I want that. I want that dessert. I want that dessert. If you don't give it to me, then I'm not going to eat food. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do the homework. I'm not going to, all the kind of attitude. And the mom says, oh my God, okay, oh my God. Goes to the dad, and it's like a bill going through the parliament. She comes to bill number 1. Maybe it's rejected by the parliament, the father. So then she goes back, she goes, no, bill failed, right? So he starts again, moaning, groaning again. And then she comes, bill number 2. Eventually, one of the bills is going to pass. And the dad's going to say, okay, I'll give the £100 or the £150 for those trainers. And I already gave him £100 for that suit that he's got, this track suit. And I'm going to give you another £200 for this and that. And this kid's grown up with all the luxuries. He wears all of that, comes out the shower of your shower after an hour, then goes out your door not knowing when he's going to come back. There's no timetable. You can't tell him, come back at this time, come back at that time. You can't. He's got a phone in his pocket, and that's another one. The phone in his pocket has made him go on to another level. With all his friends and everybody else that he contacts through his phone and so on, or her phone, oh my God, the freedom has gone above freedom. And now they control you. You wait at the door saying, please Allah, please, I hope my child comes today at 8 o'clock or not before 9 o'clock. You're praying to Allah. And when your child does come, you're like, thank you Allah. When your child doesn't come, you're frantically moving around trying to get a hold of him. You're trying to go out in the streets and look for him. Well, tell me, how did that happen? How did the child, for example, some parents don't have that. Some parents have the thing where your child doesn't want to work. Your child doesn't want to work. Or your child doesn't want to study. You can't do anything about it. Why? Why not? Where have you lost that control of the child? I'll tell you where you lost it. You lost it at the age of 6. At the age of 7, 8, 9, 10. These are the formidable years you lost control over the child. When you haven't controlled him, or not controlled, but showing your authority in a perfect, rightly given way. It's your right to have control. Just like it's the right of the government to have control over citizens, it's the right of you as a parent to have full control of your family and your household. This is your household, this is your kingdom. And you control, not to say you've got to be harsh with them, or hit them, or scold them. I'm not saying any of that. You have the right to keep your control, and whichever way you do it. Now imagine some parents, they want to get the children married off, and the child doesn't want to get married. The child doesn't want to get married at all. Delaying years. Now you're fearing that your child is going to commit zina. Now yes, I do understand sometimes parents also go beyond the limits here, because sometimes parents should have got the child married early off and they didn't. And that's their fault. Sometimes parents, you see, the whole thing is on, if we get our job right, everything else will go fine. If you get the balance right in terms of, you give them playtime, don't get me wrong. but you keep control of your authority over them, and you don't give them playtime when it's time for them to work. You make them work when it's time for them to work. You make them do homework when it's time for them to do homework. Another thing is, look, when they're doing homework, don't complain if your child doesn't know the answers if you help them all along. Let me give you an example. If there's a paper that you're getting them ready for, a paper, and they're looking at this paper, and you're sitting with them, a mock test or something, and you say, oh, do you know the answer to this? Do you know what this means? And the child doesn't know what it means. And you just tell them the answer. You tell them what it means. You tell them, oh, this is how you work it out. Every time they've got a test, or every time they've got something to work out, even if it's not a test, even if it's just a paper, you just help them, you just show them it. You know what you're doing, my friend? You're damaging the future of the child. Because you're pampering. The more you allow the child to put difficulty on him or herself by working this themselves, the better it is for you and the child. You make now independent thinking. The more you make the children grow with responsibility, with understanding this is life, understanding this is a cycle. When my parents give me something, I've got to give back to my parents. When my society gives me something, I've got to give back to my society. The more you make them learn that, the better they will be. The more you make them learn that all girls outside there are the daughters of men, are the sisters of brothers. They are the children of other parents. They need to be respected. Boys need to learn, well, that's respect. There's a balance between you trying to make a relationship with someone and somebody else's daughter being taken away, somebody's sister being taken for a ride. And the same with girls. When they grow up, these are boys, yes, they are the sons of these families. They need to be respected. The more we teach them, it's a give and take, it's respect. You give, you take. You give, you take. All right? Some things you don't get, some things you do get. You obey, you listen, and then you listen too. This is a two-way process. The more this happens, that there's a healthy balance between parents and children, alhamdulillah, society will be really good. And the moment we break all that, and what I said to you earlier on, is that the more you pamper your children, give them what they want, break the rules, allow them to have how much they want at an early age, in the later years, it's going to be suffering that we've got to face. And the final thing I want to say to you, because I'll make sure that your salah is 1:30 inshallah. The final thing I want to say to you is some parents sitting here have probably gone they've gone beyond all of this. Your children are not young. So what do? Well, you need to start taking back your authority. You need to curb what you've given. If you've got a child that is not listening to you, that is not working, that doesn't want to do anything, just sitting off in your house, off your bills, and doing whatever they want, then you need to start removing from them slowly the gifts that you've loaded them with. One by one. Not all of them at once. One by one, remove the gifts that you've given. Remove the comforts that you provided one by one, little by little. Okay? If you're giving X amount of pocket money, start reducing that. If you're giving so much comfort in the house, start reducing whatever you can and bring them back to the authority that they should have, the obedience that you have, the respect they should have for you as parents, and then start again. Have good conversations at home and try to get that balance once again inside the household. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us tawfiq and give us ability, and may Allah Azza wa Jal make us have families that grow up truly to become those that, as Allah has said in the Holy Quran, وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا, that they become the guides for us who have God consciousness in our lives. May Allah Azza wa Jal make that happen. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.